Most people believe that being nice is the ultimate social lubricant. We are taught from childhood that the more we give, the more we will be valued. However, psychological data suggests the opposite is often true. In many social hierarchies, extreme agreeableness is not perceived as kindness. It is perceived as a lack of boundaries. When you remove the friction from your personality, you don't become more likable. You become invisible. You aren't being valued for who you are. You are being utilized for what you provide. This is the psychological trap of the nice persona, and it is quietly eroding your status in every room you enter. 1. Personal relevance. You may have noticed a pattern in your own life. You are the first person people call when they need a favor, but the last person they think of when an opportunity for advancement or a high-status social event arises. This happens because your social value has been replaced by utility value. If you find yourself constantly apologizing for things that aren't your fault, or saying yes to avoid a moment of tension, you aren't building a reputation for being helpful. You are training the people around you to treat your time and effort as a free resource. As we dive into the mechanics of social exchange theory, you'll see why this behavior actually makes people respect you less, not more. 2. The Scarcity Principle and Social Exchange. In social psychology, social exchange theory posits that human relationships are formed by the use of a subjective cost-benefit analysis. When you are too nice, you effectively flood the market with your own supply. In any economic system, social or financial, when supply is infinite and easily accessible, the value of that commodity crashes. Research on the scarcity principle suggests that humans place a higher value on things that are difficult to obtain. By being perpetually available and agreeable, you signal that your time and approval have a cost of 0. If your yes is guaranteed, it becomes worthless. This is why people who occasionally say no or set firm boundaries are often treated with more deference. Their approval must be earned. When you give away your social currency for free, you shouldn't be surprised when people treat it as if it has no value. This leads to a phenomenon where your kindness is no longer viewed as a choice but as an obligation. 3. The Agreeableness Paradox. The big 5 personality traits include agreeableness. While high agreeableness is beneficial for teamwork, extreme levels are statistically linked to lower career earnings and lower perceived leadership potential. This is known as the Agreeableness Paradox. Psychologically, a person who is too nice is often perceived as having high harm avoidance. Others instinctively sense that your kindness is actually a defense mechanism used to avoid conflict. When people realize you are afraid of tension, they stop taking your opinions seriously. They assume that your feedback is filtered through a need to please, rather than a commitment to the truth. This creates a status ceiling. In social hierarchies, those at the top are expected to protect their own interests. If you cannot protect your own time or boundaries, the lizard brain of the collective group assumes you lack the competence to protect theirs. But the loss of respect isn't the only cost. There is a hidden psychological resentment brewing beneath the surface. 4. The nice guy/girl syndrome and covert contracts. Psychologist Dr. Robert Glover describes a phenomenon where being too nice is actually a form of manipulation, albeit an unconscious one. This involves covert contracts. You do something nice for someone with the unspoken expectation that they will reciprocate with respect, love, or loyalty. However, because the contract is covert, the other person is unaware of it. When they don't reciprocate, because they see your kindness as a free gift, the nice person feels a deep sense of resentment. This creates a toxic dynamic where you feel like a victim, while the other person feels like you're suddenly being passive-aggressive or unpredictable. This cycle destroys your social value because it makes you appear untrustworthy. People would rather deal with someone who is occasionally blunt but honest than someone who is perpetually nice but harbors hidden expectations. It raises the question, if you are always wearing a mask of kindness, who are you actually? 5. Cognitive dissonance and perceived weakness. There is a final, darker psychological mechanism at play: cognitive dissonance. When someone treats you poorly and you respond with extreme kindness, you create a psychological conflict in their mind. To resolve this conflict, they often justify their poor treatment of you by convincing themselves that you deserve it, that you are weak or pathetic. By failing to provide a consequence for their bad behavior, you give them permission to devalue you. Social value is maintained through a series of micro-negotiations. Every time you allow a slight to pass without a boundary, you are negotiating your status downward. People do not respect those who allow themselves to be walked on. They simply walk on them until the person is no longer useful. To regain value, one must introduce selective friction. It is the ability to be disagreeable when necessary that makes your moments of kindness actually meaningful. 6. Final reflection. The goal is not to become a person who is unkind. The goal is to become a person who is capable of both kindness and confrontation. True social value is found in the middle ground, where your yes is valued because your no is a real possibility. When you remove the fear of being disliked, you gain the ability to be respected. Ultimately, being too nice is a strategy for survival that often results in social isolation. It is a quiet trade. You exchange your identity for a temporary sense of safety. But in the long run, the world doesn't reward those who are harmless. It rewards those who have teeth, but choose not to use them.